Good.
I really like the public side of things.
Oh,
The
good.
city's been a little chaotic.
Just gonna
Yeah.
try and find a.
That's, it is very
It's good.
good.
See if we have. We have a quorum.
We do.
Yeah.
Good start to the new year. We're a little late, call it Chinese New Year, but it's working.
So do we want to wait then until Noah gets here for election of officers and just skip over that part? Of the meeting?
Yeah, let's maybe come back to that when Noah's gonna be a few minutes late. He let me know. So we can probably get started and come back to the election of officers. For Noah's here, maybe
Okay.
after item 3.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Are we ready?
We should be ready. Yeah.
We're ready. Okay.
Don, are we ready to go? Okay.
Okay, sounds good. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Planning Advisory Committee for Thursday, February 19th, 2026. We will go around and do introductions here in the room first. Do we want to start? Elliot, do you want to start?
I think the microphone is on and working. Hello, it's Elliot, senior planner with City of Roanoke Park.
Diane Levine, associate planner with City of Sonoma.
Chris Barney, SCTCA.
Ada Chan, ABEG MTC.
Connor McKay, senior planner, Santa Rosa.
Will Lyons, permit Sonoma, unincorporated county.
Adam Garcia, SCTCA.
Thank you, and we can move over to Zoom. Let's see. Who's on Zoom? Will, are you on Zoom too?
I don't have to crane my neck.
Do you want me to read it off?
Sure. I think Amanda May is on there. Anyone from any other cities on there? Or Adam's on there. To read it off. Will you read it?
Yeah, I'm happy to read it.
I don't know why my sound is on.
Okay.
So we have Amanda May, Chris Cohn from SCTCA, Christian from Santa Rosa, Luke from Four Leaf, and Zoe from Smart. And we also have Darren Ranaletti from MTCA Bag.
Thanks, Chris. Okay. We have the meeting notes from December 18th, 2025. Do we need a motion for that, Chris?
Yes.
Because we haven't adopted that. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the meeting notes from December 18th, 2025? Anyone want to make a motion?
Oh, I wasn't here. I'm happy to move to approve the meeting notes from the previous meeting.
Thanks, Connor. Do I have a second?
If I can.
Thanks, Will. And then adoption of the agenda for today's agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We're going to skip over the election of officers until Noah gets here. He should be here in the next 5 or so minutes. And then we will come back to that. And then the 2026 discussion topics and work plan. Chris is going to put that up for us.
Yes.
And give us a little intro on that.
For sure. So every December, January, February, as the Planning Advisory Committee, we put together a list of topics that we'd like to try and get to over the next year and work on, including scheduling presentations and having discussions on those items. So we've done a little bit of work on that over the last 2 meetings. So I'll show you what we have now. Let me just share my screen. And would love to hear if there are any recommendations for additional items we should add to that list. So it should be coming up on the screen here, and I'll try and zoom in a little bit. as well. Got all the Zoom stuff over everything. But can people see that? Here we go. Okay, so we have a number of housing items, including housing element implementation, affirmatively furthering fair housing, some technical items such as our travel demand model and forecasting, activating transit hubs, looking at smart, in particular, the east-west connection and the status of northern expansion, planned area 2050 plus, RENA coming up this year. So moving into that for the next few years, state housing law implementation, economic development. There's been a desire to dig into funding and grant opportunities a little bit more. So we'll work on getting some information lined up for that. Talking about transit, combining meetings with other committees, in particular our TAC and also our transit TAC. So to see what our colleagues on the engineering, public works, and transit side of our agencies are doing. Looking into mobility hubs, opportunity zones, and permanent supportive housing standards. So that's our first pass at a list. We can always add things midstream. But if there's anything that jumps out right now that you think we should be working on or talking about over the next year, we can add it to the list and start getting things lined up. So, and if it's not on the list, we can definitely still add it, but this is just helpful as we're planning meetings over the next year.
Thanks, Chris. Does anybody have anything that jumps out that they think they'd like added or something that they want to discuss this upcoming year? Okay.
It looks pretty comprehensive, but I'll be happy to coordinate speakers and stuff with you.
That sounds great. Thanks, Ada.
Okay. Moving on to item 3, TOC policy discussion. We'll be receiving an update on the regional transit-oriented communities policy.
And this will be from Darren from MTCA BAG, who's on Zoom.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me. So I'm Darren Ranaletti. I'm the Assistant Director for Housing and Local Planning. And one of our TOC team members was supposed to give this update, but had some schedule conflicts, and Sophie, who was going to attend, was out sick. So I'm stepping in today to give the update. So I'm just going to give you a brief verbal update and then happy to answer questions at the end. So this past January, the MTC Commission approved the OBAG4 funding framework, and it included a $45 million TOC incentive program, and that was contained within the OBAG4 regional program. The approval was contingent upon action at the upcoming February Commission meeting to provide the specifics on that TOC incentive program. The OBAG4 funding framework also includes a $5 million set aside for the North Bay, which would be integrated into North Bay County shares, considering that some counties have fewer TOCs than other parts of the region. In January, MTC Chair Sue Nowak convened an ad hoc group of commissioners to further refine some of the key policy questions related to OBAG4 and TOC. And at its meeting this upcoming Wednesday, MTC staff is going to share the ad hoc committee's recommendations and ask that the commission approve the details of the $45 million TOC incentive program. This action would include approval of the TOC evaluation framework. So that's the scoring system that explains how TOC consistency will be evaluated. And the evaluation framework is the same as the last version that was shared with local staff in the fall, and it incorporates some important changes, such as decreasing the points for minimum and maximum office intensity, decreasing the points for vehicle parking maximums, given current market challenges, increases the points for shared and unbundled parking policies, and allows a wider variety of funding sources to count towards fulfilling funding standards for the housing policies. At its meeting on Wednesday, the Commission will consider potential adjustments to the evaluation framework related to SB 79 and housing protection policies. and also weigh in on the incentive program structure, eligibility, and submission deadline. The proposed details on that program structure and evaluation framework will be included in the agenda packet for next Wednesday's meeting, which should be released either today or tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And if interested, tune in to next Wednesday's meeting. And that's it for my update. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, ABAG MTC staff. Is there any questions?
You can make a proud statement about your TOC statements.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Sorry I'm running late today. Yes, Katati's been able to make a lot of headways for TOC compliance. Our portal score is not finalized. We have a couple last minute modifications from our council, but we did adopt a TOC compliance ordinance and anticipate being fairly high in the scoring.
And the first one in the region. That's all. Go Sonoma.
Okay, well, we will move. My understanding is we need to move back to item 2 on the agenda.
2C.
2C, okay. You guys waited for the election for me to be here, okay. So do we have any nominations or interest in serving as the chair and vice chair for 2026? Well, I'm fine to continue serving in the chair role or vice chair if Ellen's interested in chairing.
I'm happy to continue in the vice chair role as well and tag team with you.
Yeah,
We can
perfect.
Switch off, whatever we want to do.
Okay, well, I'm fine, just keep things moving as they have. I'm happy to do this, and I feel like, with all the support from staff, I'm able to fit it into our workload, yeah.
Thank you.
So do we need nominations and votes?
We should do it. Yeah. Should do that. Go nominate.
Okay.
We have a second.
Second.
All right, so we'll just do not a roll call vote, but I'll just ask for any opposed. All right, that's unanimous.
Okay. I think you know.
Yeah. So then does that take us to item 4?
It does, yeah.
All right, item 4, update on the draft comprehensive transportation plan.
Yeah, and that'll be me. I'll go ahead and bring up a presentation on that. All right. All right, great. So happy to be here today. We've been working on our comprehensive transportation plan for the last 1.5 to 2 years. We released the draft in January. So I'll be providing an update on the draft and next steps going forward as far as that project goes. So let me go ahead and presentation here. So just a quick review on what our comprehensive transportation plan is. It's a planning document that we update every 4 or 5 years. There are a number of statutory requirements included in that, but it's also a reference document that we use at SCTCA that includes a lot of information on current trends, demographics, and statistics, particularly associated with transportation and growth and forecasts in Sonoma County. So hopefully that's a useful resource for you all as well. We use it in a lot of our other planning in the agency and try and make it a useful resource for the county and our colleagues. So it also helps guide future transportation funding and long-term planning. So one of our requirements as a county transportation planning agency is to allocate different transportation funding sources. And so the CTP helps guide that and helps us prioritize those and many transportation needs across the county. And then it also outlines a vision and some goals for Sonoma County, considering transportation that we'd like to work towards over the next 25 or 30 years. So this CTP, Sonoma Moves 2050 is the tagline for the new plan, builds on our last two plans that were adopted in 2016 and 2021. So we're trying not to reinvent the wheel every time we do this and build out on what we learned and developed as part of past CTPs. So a lot of the updates for this plan are technical in nature and really looking at new projects, changing project needs, and changing data and information. So based on that, for this update, we focused on refreshing our public outreach. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides. We developed a progress report that charted out how we're doing in different goal areas. So Adam presented on that last year and showed, how our road condition, how our BMT reduction, GHG reductions, safety, reporting on metrics and kind of if we're going in the right direction or still need to work harder in some areas. Part of the CTP also includes a performance analysis. So looking out to the future, looking out to 2050 and trying to anticipate needs and changes over time there. We updated the robust reference sections in the plan. So we include a lot of information about the state of our transportation system now and growth in the county. One big task is updating the project list. So there are over 300 transportation projects in the plan. This is the starting point for lining up these projects for funding at the MTC level and for a lot of state programs and federal programs as well. So we worked very closely with your colleagues on the public works side and engineering side of the House and with the transit providers to make sure that that project list is current, taking completed projects off that list, revising project descriptions and making sure priority projects are lined up for that funding going forward. And then one thing we'll be doing this summer is mapping out how we can make progress in the next 5 to 10 years. So the CTP is looking at a 25 to 30 year planning horizon. But it's important to see and consider what we'll do in the shorter term. So here's a look at our update schedule and the different tracks we've been working on. So we've been working on public outreach over the course of the plan, including an online survey. We've been out in the community talking to folks. We've held a number of workshops. The draft plan is out now and we'll be taking comments through late March on the draft plan. So we're sticking with our vision and goals. So we checked in with our board to make sure that they still represent their priorities. So we put together that progress report. So that's that second track. We've done a lot of technical analysis and gathered a lot of new data. So that's mostly Adam. He's reported a few times on that work. And then I mentioned the project list. So we've been working primarily with the TAC on updating that project list, looking at funding sources and making sure all those requirements are met. So those projects are eligible for that funding going forward. And then we've been drafting the plan. We have the draft out now and we're shooting to release the final CTP in May. So moving on to the vision and goals, these probably look familiar. It's the same vision that we developed as part of our last plan, but it's really focused on connecting people, right? Not moving cars, getting people to where they want to go and doing that in a clean, efficient, and zero emissions way. So as a climate protection authority, we're working to make our transportation network zero emissions by 2050. That lines up with our climate protection goals and also state goals and directives. And then the guiding principles that we look to when we're working and developing our projects here at SCTCA are to improve safety, equity, and quality of life. So it should all be pretty consistent with your general plans and active transportation plans. So digging down to different ways we can help get to that vision. We worked with our board and with you all and our advisory committees as part of the last CTP to develop these goals. And there are 4 different focus areas. One, again, is focusing on those connections, right? Connecting people to where they want to go, making our transportation system more reliable. So that includes a complete network, right? Like bike lanes that don't drop people off into a busy street. Transit system that is reliable and on time. Less congestion, so that's part of it as well. But there are a number of other factors to that as well, including easy access, affordability, and dependable choices. So safety is a huge thing, and as part of our outreach, that's one of the big things we've been hearing over the last year. It's a major priority for travelers here in Sonoma County. And a lot of times it is a barrier to people making different choices when they're traveling. If they don't feel safe, they'll default to what they've been doing for the last little while. So maintenance is also very important, both on the road and other infrastructure side. We're also very focused on making our transportation system focused on the community and places. So again, focusing on people and places, not necessarily the technology or vehicles. Transportation is about access, right? Accessing job opportunities, service, social opportunities, things like that. There are a lot of very large projects that move people long distances in the plan, but it's also important to consider the neighborhood factors and getting people around in those smaller places as well. And then finally, zero emissions. We're very committed to moving towards a zero emission transportation future. So both to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, but to enhance health and quality of life as well. So what is in the plan? There are 7 different chapters. I'll talk a little bit about each of these. Quick introduction that includes an executive summary, some information on engagement and outreach. We have a section focused primarily on travel trends, behavior, and demographics. So this may be a good reference section if you're developing your own plans, you can pull information from. We have a very robust chapter on our current transportation system, which includes pavement condition, miles, lane miles of roadways, miles of bike lanes and pathways. So a lot of statistics and information that you may be able to pull from and get information from. And we also include discussions about emerging trends in that chapter as well. So again, maybe a useful reference. Then we have a chapter talking about the project list, a lot of detail in there. And in the appendix, we have the detailed list of transportation projects. So all 300 plus projects are listed out in the appendix. So a lot of detail there. We include a chapter looking at the plan performance. So how are we doing now at achieving those goals, and how do we think we'll be doing in the future? And then a section on implementation that includes discussions about funding and, how we're going to do this, right? Yeah. So talking about outreach, there are 3 different things we considered going into the outreach piece of the comprehensive transportation plan. One was looking at past CTP input that we've received, but also concurrent and recent planning efforts that you all and other agencies have been conducting. Every time we go out and talk to people, you probably hear the same thing. They give us feedback and they want to be heard, right? So it was important for us to start with that. So we did a survey of those recent planning and outreach documents, and you can see this word cloud. That's what we were hearing. Again, safety, maintenance, cost of transportation, time to get around, transit, and biking and walking were both very important. So wanted to be starting from that point, and we used that as the basis of our outreach when we were going out and talking with people. We also looked at surveys that we've conducted in the past for the past CDP, Measure M, and Go Sonoma, which is our transportation sales tax. So again, largely consistent with what we saw in the other planning documents. It takes too much time to get around, right? It harms the environment, needs to be better maintained, costs too much, isn't safe. So again, that was part of the mix when we were developing materials, when we were going out to talking with people. And then we got out into the community. So you can see a couple pictures here of us tabling and holding workshops. So we had an online survey running through the length of our work, held a number of workshops, including one at the junior college, one at Sonoma State, number of other workshops, and we tabled at least once in each community. So at farmers markets and other events happening. So there's a chapter in the CTP that talks about the results of the outreach, including quotes, but there'll be a more comprehensive look at that in the appendix as well. So, and if you want specific things we were hearing from your communities, let us know and we can compile that information and pass it along. So again, here's what we've been hearing. Up top is the new themes of what we were hearing as part of our outreach. Support for public transit and active transportation, safety, again, very important. Reliability and access to transit. There's a support for electric vehicles, but people want to see better charging options and incentives for purchasing those vehicles. There's interest and a little trepidation about e-bikes and shared mobility. So heard a lot about that. We want to focus on equity in our travel choices and options. And congestion is still an issue, particularly in rural areas. And especially when we were out outside of our incorporated areas, we heard that the congestion on our rural roads is an equity issue. It's hitting people hard that are trying to get around in rural areas. So overall, looking at these three streams coming in, these are the top 5 themes. People want to be able to get around quicker, right? Faster travel options, we all do. A lot of support for cleaner transportation options. We should be safe when we travel, it should cost less, and it needs to be better maintained. So we have the chapter on travel trends and demographics. So this pulls from sources like our travel behavior study, the census, MPC ABAG sources. So you can see a look at the current forecast for Sonoma County, about a 13% increase in housing and rough equivalent increase in population, and then 24% increase in jobs. So this is coming from the MTC ABAG forecast. You can see the travel flows, which are staying roughly the same as we saw with the travel behavior study, but and we expect the population to continue to age. So a lot of great information in that chapter as a resource for our planning, and hopefully it's useful for you as well. So then we have the very robust chapter on the transportation system. So I encourage you to take a look, maybe skim through it, see if there's anything you can use in the future, but it covers our road system, active transportation, rail, bus, and emerging technologies. So a lot of resources there. So getting to the project list. So we have over 300 discrete projects in the comprehensive transportation plan. So these have been submitted by each of your jurisdictions. The estimated financial need for that is $17 billion, so a big price tag, with just under $5 billion identified, and that's mostly transit operation funding that flows in every year. So the 5 largest projects are 2 are in Highway 37, so that's almost $5 billion to make those improvements. Ongoing operations for SMART and East-West rail capital enhancements are big projects, but very important pieces of our transportation system. And then maintenance of our existing system is a big ticket item. The county, unincorporated county, has the most lane miles, and they have the biggest price tag attached to their maintenance need. So here's another way of looking at that: 327 projects in the plan, over 17 billion of need. And you can see the breakdown by different project types there. So over $1 billion for bike ped projects, highway improvements around 5 billion. A big chunk of that is Highway 37. And so you can see the breakdown here. This is also in the plan. So in the performance assessment, a lot of great information in there on how we're doing currently, or how we've been doing over the last 5 years, but how we expect things to change over time as well, including things like the condition of our system, congestion, safety, different mode shares, GHG emissions. So a lot of information in there. But here are the top level findings. So I tried to boil that down into the high points. So if we're able to find resources to implement all the transit service improvements in the plan, we'd expect to see almost a 40% increase in transit service and a 65 increase in ridership. So big increase in transit ridership if we're able to do that. And that was part of our performance assessment looking out to the future. A vastly expanded bicycle pedestrian network and accessibility, particularly for those separated facilities. So a lot of great projects in the plan. Most are unfunded, but if we can work towards implementing those, there are a lot of benefits there. Our VMT or greenhouse gas per capita is trending down, but we're still very far away from hitting that zero emissions goal. So making some progress, but not at the rate that we really need to or want to get to. Our pavement condition is trending up in the last 5 years, but we need to continue to invest to make sure that trend continues. For a number of years before these past 5 years, it was going in the opposite direction. But each of your jurisdictions have been investing in our infrastructure, so that's been showing up in better condition of roadways. We've also been seeing collisions trending down. We're a little unsure how things will change in the future. It's expected to increase in the future just due to the growth and more activity. But if we continue with the trends and the activities and actions that we've been emphasizing over the last 10 years, like Provision Zero, reducing speeds, and safety improvements in corridors, we expect that trend to continue down as well, if we can keep doing that. We're expecting congestion and travel times to increase by 15% by 2050 in the CTP. But if we don't do anything, we're expecting that to increase by 65%. So we're able to kind of toe the line by making some limited improvements in the CTP. And then we're expecting household travel costs to stay roughly the same going forward. So moving on to implementation, we have a number of opportunities we're identifying. 60% of our trips in Sonoma County are under 5 miles. So there are opportunities to shift that to other modes. Almost 90% of our trips stay in the county. So again, if we continue to improve those transit and non-auto networks, hopefully we can shift some of those to cleaner and more efficient modes. There's been a focus on city center growth in Sonoma County, so that's helpful in keeping people closer to where they want to go. Working from home has pluses and minuses. So we're seeing that level out, the rate level out a little bit after the pandemic. And the research we're looking at is showing that overall VMT isn't really going down. People are driving at different times of the day, but it's evening out that congestion a little bit. So the congested periods, it can provide some relief there. So kind of a mixed benefit there. Number of emerging opportunities that could help if we do those and implement those correctly and in the right ways. We'll have more bicycle and pedestrian connections if we continue to implement the CTP, and that increased transit ridership's really huge. If we're able to implement those improvements, there's a big benefit there. So, but we do face a lot of challenges. Our land use pattern is relatively mature. So, and it's often difficult to get around without a car here. So you saw that 13 to 20% growth over the next 30 years compared to, the 500,000 people that already live here. So we're making progress, but where things are built are where they are now. So it's preaching to the choir here, right? So not a lot of opportunities to retrofit there. Travel in the county is still focused on single occupant vehicles, even though we're seeing some shifts to other modes. It's still very high. Emergency events like flooding and wildfire really impact travel patterns and infrastructure and uncertainty. So that's something we deal with specifically in Sonoma County. We have limited funding. So we have about a little over 25%, 30% of our need is funded. So there's a pretty big gap there, but we'll keep working on funding those projects and prioritizing the ones that can provide the biggest benefit to our county. We're seeing increased congestion in travel times and forecasts. So when you add more people and activity, that generally happens. And we're still, even though we're making some progress on reducing our transportation greenhouse gas emissions, we're still far away from hitting those. So here's a list of ways that we are advocating to implement our vision. We need additional funding, right? We have that big funding gap. So we need that funding to maintain what we have, to improve and expand our transit system, and to implement all those great projects in the plan. So we'll continue to work on that, finding new ways to get those projects done. We need to continue to focus on equity, improving our affordability and prioritizing equitable access in each of our communities. That focus on city center growth is really helpful, right? Each of our jurisdictions have an urban growth boundary. There's been a huge focus on priority development areas. So we need to continue to emphasize that. We'll implement trip reduction strategies. So Dana and Steph led a travel demand management planning effort last year. So we have a lot of great ideas there to help people reduce their trips. We have a lot of those shorter trips, right? Those trips under 5 miles. So there are a lot of opportunities to shift those to walking, biking, or other modes if people have opportunities and feel safe to do that. One thing that'll help us reach those greenhouse gas emission goals are to improve our average fuel economy of our vehicle fleet through electrification, hybrids, and cleaner fuels. There are opportunities to shift freight to rail in some cases. There are a lot of different transportation technologies that could help, like autonomous vehicles, freight and delivery improvements, remote work, things like that. So we really need to watch those so they're implemented correctly in ways that are beneficial and not deter from what we're trying to do. And then, as I mentioned before, we're going to identify projects and actions we can implement in the near term in the next 5 or 10 years. It's great to think big, but it's nice to have a shorter term game plan as well. So that's something we'll be working on this summer. So the draft's out now. We have a searchable project list on the project website as well. So you want to see what projects are identified in your jurisdiction, you can as well. We also have an online form where you can just shoot me an email if you have feedback as well. But yeah, it's out in the wild. Please let us know if you have any feedback. And we'll be doing this again in another 4 or 5 years, so updating the plan. So it's a cycle, as we all know, with these planning efforts. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris, and all the SCTCA staff. A lot of hard work goes into that, I know. Is there an end date to the comment period?
Yeah, March 23rd.
Great.
Yeah. So we'll be taking the draft to our board at the March 9th meeting and providing a few weeks after that for comments. We held a workshop in this room at the end of January. We had 40 or 50 people here. So a lot of great comments from that. And we're getting comments trickling in as well through the online form and via email. So, and we'll use that feedback from the draft to kind of refine the final, and we can bring that back to this group. I guess that'll be at the June meeting. So not expecting a lot of huge changes, but we'll have a nice graphic designed version and some cleanup and revisions based on public feedback.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Chris or the SCTCA team?
I had 2 questions. One was just something I noticed on the timeline sheet. There's something that said SCTA funding program cycle 2 scoring coming this spring or summer.
Yes.
Would love to hear more about that in human terms.
Yeah. So, and this is probably a good presentation we can have our programming team bring to this group, do a full presentation on our SCTCA funding program. So you can see how how that works. But to give the Cliff Notes version, we have a lot of different funding sources that are coming through our agency that go out to these different projects. And so the way those are often handled is in the past, we've done different calls for projects. So we have this funding program. Give us your project ideas, we'll score those and then allocate the funding out based on that scoring or that call for projects. So we've tried to consolidate that, take a number of those different funding streams and put them in one package, that funding program, ask everyone for their top 5 or 10 projects. So we had a pretty detailed project application. I think it's 15 or 20 pages, just full of a lot of details for all those projects. But there's millions of dollars on the line, right, to get these projects funded. We issued a call for projects last summer. We have all of those projects. They'll be scored this spring using criteria that tie back to the comprehensive transportation plan goals and vision. So that scoring will identify the top projects that can be lined up with that funding. I think it's in the $80 million range now for those different projects. And so that'll be happening this spring. I'll schedule a presentation on the process and the results of the scoring, maybe at our April meeting. We might be able to score something then so you can see kind of where things are falling out. And then we'll start getting that money to those different projects. So, and that's on a roughly, it's like on a 4 to 7 year funding cycle as different funding sources are kind of flow into that. That includes our One Bay Area grant funding, which is coming through SCTCA bag, and other funding sources on top of that. So yeah, if there's interest, I'll definitely schedule a more detailed presentation from the folks that can answer all the detailed questions. Yeah.
I'm seeing my nod and I see 2 other nods at least.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then my second question, I believe, would be an Adam question, which has to do with some of that data and the performance assessment. I see that increased, there's the increase on congestion and travel timing. Just wondering if you have anything in that performance assessment, assuming that that is focused on increased automobile travel times, if you have anything says like our non-automobile trips from A to B will have an increased or decreased time over the life of the plan, if that's something that is trackable.
Yeah, unfortunately, the travel model at this point does not track those active transportation routes. It's something that we're looking into for part of our model update is to get more granularity and be able to get that level of detail for walking, biking, transit. But at this point, it's pretty much just driving, unfortunately. So yeah, somewhat limited.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thanks. Any other questions for SCTCA? Chris, I was wondering, have you seen any trends or anything that we should be thoughtful about regarding funding? I was just thinking of the state budget situation, and I know the federal funding has kind of been shifting priorities.
Right. Federal funding has been interesting. So we've had to recharacterize the focus of some of the projects going after federal funding and focus on safety over other types of priorities. So that's been one thing, but there's a flow that keeps coming in. We're seeing a big focus on safety. You know, there's the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. So that's been a big federal program. But we are very thankful for the partnership with the SCTCA bag. You know, those One Bay Area grant funds are, they're critical to really making the whole PDA process work, right? Like making connections to the PDAs and supporting the growth that's focused in those areas. So we expect that to continue. And then we have our Go-Sonoma funding as well, the transportation sales tax. So revenue from that has been consistent and been going up. So that's been steady as well. So, but yeah, I'll make sure to get our funding experts lined up for a few presentations over the next few years. And we have a contract with some financial and economic analysts that kind of track the sales tax receipt trends as well. And we can have maybe see if they can report on trends there, what we're seeing on the sales tax side.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I've talked about it before, but we're seeing kind of transportation, housing and planning all merging. And I think it's been great for all of us to have that insight into some of the funding streams that traditionally has been the public works side of the house has been kind of in charge of or going after. And just as we kind of start to blend our efforts, put in more work for grants that kind of cross all of those different, work focuses, I think it would be super helpful for this group to have more insight.
That sounds great.
Great. And then just the last thing I wanted to mention is our Public Works Department brought up just this week that we're going to start to look at our long range safety plans again, so they've, I think, about 3 years old now. So 2027 is likely when we're going to need to start that. And so just keeping, again, this kind of big picture transportation plan, funding ideas, and that need to update that in the coming year or so, or start that update process, I think is a good thing for all of us just to be thoughtful about.
Yeah, we can definitely line up a presentation on the local road safety plans once that starts going. So in the past, we had a countywide effort where jurisdictions could hire the same consultant to update their local road safety plan. So that was a good cost savings
Absolutely.
measure. So we can definitely bring that back to this group.
As one of the smaller cities in the county, we would love that.
Yeah.
I know it's very much appreciated. And also, I think it helps us, again, on the planning side, start to connect some of our active transportation planning projects, funding sources, and then the goals of the LRSP. It's all just good things for us to be thoughtful about.
Great.
Okay. There's no other questions. We can move on to item 6, regional updates. Or sorry, I don't want to skip Mr. Garcia. Sonoma County Travel Model General Plan Build Out Update.
Thought I was off the hook. All right, so yeah, thank you. Adam Garcia, SCTCA. So this presentation is more of a status update on our travel demand model update. So as you know, we use the travel model to be able to evaluate different land use and transportation projects, general plans, specific plans. And so we've gone, this is kind of the third in the series. We've gone through existing conditions for 2023. We've done the Plan Area 2050 projections. So taking what ABAG MTC sees for the county and distributing that around. And this is a similar project also, but it's for general plan build out, it's based off the jurisdiction's general plan. So it's the interpretation of that is saying what's existing and what's the maximum amount that could be built based off the kind of zoning and general plan designations of those land uses. So the last update we had was for 2040. And so fortunately, there's a number of jurisdictions that still have their general plan consistent from that same 2040 update. So for those cases, there's more of kind of minor updates that are needed just based off, in this case, maybe where something was designated for residential, but commercial was built or vice versa, making those types of updates. Otherwise, there could be specific plans that have been updated as well. The TOC policy, as we know from Katati, that's has an impact as well. And then in other cases, cities are either have adopted or in the process of adopting general plans as well too. So that's where we're working to try to figure out and getting on the radar for those jurisdictions to make sure that we can have some type of output, ideally by the consultants putting together those general plans to be able to provide that kind kind of maximum build out scenario. So part of this, I'll just share my screen with a few different images and updates, some that are in the agenda packet that you should have already seen. So just to kind of go through these and let me know if there's anything missing and be helpful as well too. So this is showing the general plans, kind of the status, and then any specific plans that we're aware of that are going on that we need to incorporate. So for instance, for Katati, I mentioned there's the TOC policy. There was a great document on kind of the water assessment that gave some very specific information around some build out scenarios, which was really helpful, as well as the Santero Way stationary specific plan. Petaluma is going through their general plan update. So we've received some updates from them on what that build out scenario is. Elliot, hopefully we can talk after the meeting and just clarify. You've also provided some great information as well too. For Santa Rosa, one of the ongoing specific plans is actually both for Santa Rosa and the county, I should say, the South Santa Rosa specific plan. So that will have some impacts on the general plan build out. And we did receive kind of not necessarily not necessarily general plan build out, but kind of a 2050 build out, which maybe we can talk about that, also set up another meeting, Connor, if that's all right, just to kind of review that. I'll share a few maps just at the end towards the end of this, but there were a couple things just to flag that we wanted to make sure we were looking at the right information and so forth. And then let's see, one of the other updates, yeah, so for City of Sonoma, they're going through their general plan update, so we'll be meeting with Jennifer later today to have another follow-up meeting on getting that information. And then for unincorporated county, will be a good long process. So we're not anticipating getting anything immediately, but just kind of going off of what we've had so far. And within all of these, I should mention also that we're looking at each of the housing elements, as we know everybody adopted there. So thank you all. So using that information, comparing it to what we've had for our pending development projects, and making sure that we can incorporate any updates to that build out perspective. So let's see. And maybe I'll just stop there and just see if there's any questions or additions. Did I miss any specific plans that are in process or anything?
Let's talk.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so yeah, let's see. We've got most of these I think are kind of minor edits that we're working on. Petaluma I mentioned has been updated. Rohnert Park will be shortly updated. And Santa Rosa also pending the South Santa Rosa specific plan. So our goal is to have these updates made in the next few weeks, as soon as possible, ideally, and make sure that those are then available for running for these different scenarios. We've get these different travel model requests, and that's generally one of the scenarios they want to look at is what's the existing conditions and then what's the general plan build out. The other thing that we'll be working on also is once we get the CTP projects prioritized, we'll have a better sense of which ones are funded. We can include those projects in the general plan build out scenario as well too. So that'll be also in the next probably few months to make sure then we have kind of that complete package that we can say, here's what's being planned compared to what's existing already. All right, and then just a few maps to share. These will be what I'm trying to at least show kind of the delta, the comparison between what's existing and then what the general plan built out is. So I just had time to do 3 cities: Cloverdale, Santa Rosa, and Petaluma. And so just wanted to note just briefly, this legend is kind of showing obviously the darker areas, shows there's a greater capacity essentially from what the build out scenario is compared to the 2023 existing conditions. So in this case, we're looking at commercial square footage for Cloverdale. So the darker areas is saying that there's more capacity in those kind of the southwest area. When there is kind of that orange mark, that's not saying anything's being lost. It's just saying that from our data right now, it's showing that the current conditions has more built out than what the general plan scenario is showing. So Connor, that'll show up for housing for Santa Rosa as a little preview. But let's see if I can scroll through these. Wish there was a way to move the bar, the Zoom bar. That was a hassle. Sorry, let me just reorganize real quick. Sorry if that makes it too small. Can people still kind of read that? Okay, great. All right, so for Cloverdale, then we're looking at for housing units, there's a big resort going down in the, as well as commercial.
The new version?
Yes. Was it the Mirage?
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda, sorry, getting that confused.
Staff planner on that too.
Okay, yeah, so we've got that in there. So that's gonna be, yeah, adding quite a bit of commercial, institutional, park space, housing. It's a fairly large project that's moving through their planning process. And then lumping up industrial, which includes light, heavy, and then warehouses. Again, we see more development potential in that southwest portion. Moving on to Petaluma, for commercial, there's some commercial projects identified in that along Petaluma Boulevard North, as well as some identified potentially in central, kind of along Lakeville, south of Lakeville. And sorry, one more adjustment for the screen. Okay, for housing, there's a lot of development in the downtown area and just east of downtown. Again, these are some areas where it's showing our data is indicating there's more housing than what the general plan is showing. So these are kind of flags for us to at least follow up and make sure that we're getting the right information. And then for industrial, looking at that kind of fairgrounds area, as well as then the newer industrial area in the south are expected to have potentially more development. For Santa Rosa, looking at commercial area, it's kind of spread along that 101 corridor where new development is looking, as well as kind of the east-west along Highway 12 to some degree. The housing was one that I wanted to, just follow up on. That struck me as a little bit, I know you guys are building a lot, so maybe that's something just that's a factor of that, where there's more housing being developed than is in the build out. And I think this was also from PlaceWorks, I believe. So maybe it's something we can follow up with them and just make sure that the data they're providing is up to date. And then lastly, for industrial, kind of looking at that southeast and along Highway 12 and a little bit in the north for potentially more capacity for warehouse, light industrial, and heavy industrial. So our plan is to be able to produce these maps and have some follow-up meetings. We met with all the jurisdictions kind of in November, December of last year. So hopefully we can do some follow-ups as needed for any flags that might come up for trying to finalize these in the next few weeks. So maybe I'll just stop there and see if there's any questions or concerns. Let's see. Yeah, well, we have when you mean shifting, maybe what do you mean?
I have an interest in industrial.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's going to be more specific. I know there's a few examples that we've gotten from jurisdictions where something was designated as for commercial and then turned to housing. I haven't heard anything so much though in terms of changes in industrial. Yeah, oh, between cycles. Yeah, between cycles, that's something we can look at. I can try to do that analysis. Yeah, that's much more straightforward. Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Garcia? Any comments?
All right.
So Adam, one thing I was gonna say, and I think your analysis is starting to show it, is kind of two things. One, with density bonus law and a lot of other state laws that allow additional residential units to be constructed beyond base zoning, you're gonna see more and more of that orange color showing up, I think, in your analysis. And so it may be helpful to almost proactively think about how density bonus may affect the unit numbers. And I'll just say of the last 5 projects that we've entitled, 3 of them have been density bonus projects. The other 2 were almost more legacy projects that, if they were proposed today, probably would also be density bonus. And so it's almost a given that developers are going to take advantage of that. Especially for jurisdictions that have inclusionary requirements. So if we're making you build affordable housing as a part of your projects anyway, you automatically fall into these density bonus categories, and then there's CEQA exemptions, so there's almost no reason not to.
Yeah.
But that's something that our long-range documents are struggling to kind of accurately plan for, I would say.
Yeah, especially since HCD doesn't allow us to count those density bonus units. We don't get to count on.
Yeah.
So our housing elements are missing out if you just look at those numbers. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I've heard that, and that challenge too, of keeping careful track with. I know it's.
Yeah, and I don't know that there's a good answer, but I will almost say, yeah, exactly. Organizations here like that have a broader regional perspective. I think it's almost, I don't know if it's easier, but it definitely seems like it would be more helpful to have, as Jane, some type of multiplier built into your projections, because it is happening and we will see it happen. It's just the reality of all the combination of all the factors that are going into development now.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the only other thing I would say is what we're seeing, kind of to Ada's point, is a lot of our land that's designated as commercial or mixed use skewing very heavily towards residential. So we haven't seen that impact in our industrial areas, but if you're mixed use, it's essentially residential is an allowed use. So you're getting residential developments with maybe a token amount of commercial, or using one of the exemptions under density bonus to try to not build any commercial even. So we're seeing that, and that definitely is a trend that I think is going to continue as long as the market dynamics are what they are for residential, uses versus commercial, especially retail.
For sure. I think we talked about a few of those projects that I got tracking as well too. So I'll be sure to include those.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, I don't know if there's a good way to capture it, but I do think you guys are in a kind of an interesting place to see those trends and try to think about them.
Say Santa Rosa probably, Santa Rosa, you're permitting a lot of housing. Most of it is not density bonus house market rate.
Yes, I'd say so.
So it's gonna be tough, but, yeah, maybe if we use like inclusionary
Yeah.
percentage and apply that.
I think that's a good way to do it, because you guys allow more flexibility with like you can fee out in Santa Rosa more readily than some other jurisdictions. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good kind of proxy, Adam, for like where we're likely to see density bonus versus not is there an inclusionary housing requirement?
Right.
And we're getting a little bit better at tracking how they're complying with inclusionary and how many units they're getting the density bonus, so this should help as well.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Great. Okay, but yeah, super interesting topic, and I think it plugs right in with all the other kind of big picture planning documents that you guys are putting together, so really appreciate it. And that takes us to item 6, regional updates. And maybe we could just go around the room. I'm trying to decide if there's people on Zoom that would chime in, and I cannot tell. So we'll, oh, Ada, yeah.
In the mixed use options, what we're seeing in some communities, and I just got caught by a broker about this, is that the developers are choosing to do housing without the ground floor. We have some communities that are using their grocery stores. And the brokers are calling me saying that's a VMT impact, because we're looking at communities with lost so many grocery stores, or has the potential of losing so many grocery stores, that they're doing a study to see. I'm wondering if you guys are experiencing the same thing. And probably don't have the same pressures as Silicon Valley development, but.
Yeah, so to that point, so vastly different than the peninsula, which I know they have kind of some unique to their geography and economy issues. But with the grocery store specifically and the VMT issue, I do think it's a great point to bring up, and maybe actually a leverage that we could use as the planners. But my experience is that the VMT analysis hasn't caught up to how that's really going to play out. So right now, if you provide affordable housing, you get a VMT, a break in your VMT impacts if you have a certain percentage of affordable housing. So if you're a density bonus project using that exemption from your ground floor retail, you can also get exemptions from your VMT impacts just by the nature of having affordable housing units. Yeah. And then the other is mixed use projects automatically get a reduction in their VMT. So if they include a token amount of commercial, even if it wouldn't be adequate for a grocery store, they can then qualify for certain VMT reductions or exemptions. So there's the VMT analysis is because it's so early, and I don't think we've seen enough actual development under VMT real impact thresholds. I don't think it's adequate for those types of challenges that you're pointing out, which I think are obviously super real.
It's great to have a broker call, say. So just as a little segue for there, when we're looking at perhaps doing some analysis and discussion, or at a minimum, like a group discussion around that topic specifically. And then also on March 11th, Christine Furstenberg is leading a webinar on mixed use commercial retail, what works, what doesn't. And she's kind of a rock star. So people are interested, the invitation's going out tomorrow. So I'm like texting her now. Just to make sure I got titles and correct. That's what she's going to cover. But I think she's a super practical person who's been doing retail in a lot of the PDA since the beginning of the PDA program and has called me to critique, which is great. So I think she even has a checklist of things that in her experience is needed for mixed use development. Hopefully that will help too.
Sounds amazing. All right. Well, I think that's a great topic to think about. And as we get into our VMT discussions, to try to be thoughtful about what type of commercial. Absolutely agree. Yeah. But so let's do some regional updates, and I'm just gonna pick on people in the room. And Elliot, I'm gonna start with you, thinking we could just go around the room. That way, there's no question who's going next. And then we can jump to Zoom if there's anyone Zoom who's gonna chime in.
Works for me. Got a lot of kind of moving pieces, various projects in different stages, but I want to just kind of focus on three main updates for the team. Kind of in chronological order, since I think I missed the last meeting. But for anybody who doesn't know, the City Council did approve a term sheet associated with the Rohnert Park downtown project. So that is a big step forward. I think that happened in January. We don't yet have a plan submittal, but we have kind of a concept plan and a council approved term sheet that we're working with. Next, chronologically, end of January, we did get our first set of housing element zoning code amendments and our rezone approved by council. So that was a big lift, big set of changes there. And then also very exciting news, since it's been in the works for the last 8 years. The general plan update hearing is scheduled for Planning Commission on March 12th. So that is on the path. I'll leave it like that. Thank you.
Well, filling in for Jennifer today, so not sure everything that typically gets covered in these updates, but I can share just a few things that I'm aware of. So we're still working through the general plan update, now working on the annual reporting, obviously, for the general plan and the housing element. So we'll go to council with that next month. I believe it's March 18th. And then still a lot of housing activity, larger projects that the city of Sonoma hasn't seen before. So I have one that's in the sphere of influence, actually, on Broadway. That's a 120 unit with an affordable component. Waiting on a resubmittal for that. And then we have a 41 unit waiting on a resubmittal for that as well. And then we had the Montaldo project, which was 50 units with a 25% affordable component that we had gotten approved at the end of 2025. And so now we're starting to see the permits come in for that. So the merging and starting to process the permits that went along with those entitlements. I'll go ahead and stop there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Jane, you want to chime in for your various jurisdictions that you're covering?
No, oh, green is on. Okay. Like I ever need a microphone. In Sebastopol, we just went to the planning commission with our alternatives for our STG grant. And may have read that in the paper. It's been interesting. Meeting with Caltrans today to talk about how feasible those alternatives might be. At the same time, we're putting together some scope changes for our PDA grant, which will put more workforce housing within our corridor, our main Highway 116 corridor. So just lots of housing and transportation efforts going on at the same time. I need just a little bit more money to finish my STG grant. We'll see how that works out. Big changes. Sebastopol's talking about going back to two-way streets. So it'll be interesting. Lots of safety things going on. Some major affordable housing developments going on or proposed in Sebastopol. So we'll want to talk about those with Adam. And then I can update on the hotel projects. There's 2 of them that are approved and not built. And I don't want to be a Noah. I don't want I want to be Noah when I grow up, but I don't want to have the same kind of hotel project that Noah has. And then I'm also staff planner for City of Cloverdale doing that big Esmeralda project. So let's also talk about that. That's rolling forward very quickly. And I think I'll leave it there.
Jane, may I ask if the reconsideration of the two-way streets, is that sort of in conjunction with the development that's occurring
Not at
there?
all. No.
What's the impetus?
A sustainable transportation grant looking at alternatives. Sebastopol, for a town of its size, is the least safe pedestrian town in the state.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not a good, too many vehicle pedestrian conflicts. And going back to two-way slows cars down. We've evaluated 4 different alternatives. We know that no matter what alternative is selected, we're not going to speed traffic through town, and that infuriates the public because they want to be able to get through town faster. However, if we do nothing, it's going to be even worse. And that's hard to convince people of. So our poor consultants have to pull out a lot of data. So yeah, that's one of the things they're doing. A lot of pedestrian separated cycle track improvements, as well as two-way, eventually going to two-way, return to two-way traffic. This is my planning commission's recommendation. It goes March 3rd to the city council for them to come up with their preferred alternative. And it's been a fascinating project.
And then is Caltrans kind of your equal partner in that? Is the city taking the lead with Caltrans kind of following? How does that?
I was saying to Ada earlier today, Caltrans is like a rock star now. They used to block everything, and now it's like, nope, if you're going to get any money, you're going to put in wide separated bike lanes, and you're going to do this. And their new standards for complete streets is phenomenal. So they've been a fantastic partner. Ask me after the meeting this afternoon.
That's a good call. Good call. Great, thank you. Ellen, you want to give us an update on Hillsborough?
Sure. On Tuesday, we had our city council meeting, and city council adopted an SB 9 ordinance, and I did a combined SB 684-1123 ordinance. Those both passed. So those will go for second reading in a couple weeks. Also, we have our RFPs due for our South Entry area plan. Those are due on Friday. So we're hoping to take forward a PSA for that sometime in April. So I'm shooting for early April on that. Our council did bring up AB 1033 and SB 10. So I would be curious if any other jurisdictions here have, I know that Sebastopol did an AB 1033, but if anybody else has explored doing either of those, I would love to chat with you and see what your thoughts are. Other than that, our general plan annual report, and our GMO annual report, and our housing annual report are all going on our next council meeting. And we just got a large project in for 65, I think, senior housing units, and then 10 affordable units right next to our smart station. So that came in last week, so working on that too.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll go for Katati. So yeah, we have our TOC compliance ordinance adopted last month by the city council. So there's some tinkering around the edges, but it's essentially done. There's some good example documents out there if anyone's interested. Happy to chat. We have some developers who are circling for the TOC area. So we are anticipating seeing some applications following that adoption in the next probably 30 to 60 days. We've had some commercial projects, which Katati doesn't get a lot of. So a new car wash, which is that's actually an hour and a half at the planning commission discussion, and a new ayahuasca restaurant is moving forward. So yeah, ayahuasca is bought the building where the Inn of the Beginning is in downtown Katati, and are moving forward with a full renovation of the building, including an addition, which was just approved by the planning commission. So that's been great. We are also taking our APR presentations, both the general plan and housing, to commission and council in March. We had a small residential project approved on La Plaza right downtown next to the fire station, which I think will be a great addition if we can get it constructed. It's only 5 residential units, but some additional ground floor commercial, implements the DSP, the downtown plan, perfectly. And the architecture is just really good. Trying to keep our Highway 116 projects moving along. Some of you are aware we've approved about 500 residential units on Highway 116, right next to Lowe's, kind of as you head west towards Sebastopol. And there's an intersection on 116 that's been a challenge for all those developers to be able to unlock. And so we're partnering with Caltrans. We had planned a whole intersection in our general plan. It shows a signal, and Caltrans, and with all their new standards, would like a roundabout. So we're redesigning for a roundabout, and we're coming up on 65% plans for that. And we're hoping that the city's effort to be the lead on that will kind of unlock a lot of the development along that frontage. We got the developers to incorporate a class 1 bike path on their project site in addition to the bike and ped improvements that'll go on the highway itself. So I think it's going to be a great addition. Our hotel is slowly coming back to life. The developer had lost their financing. And so, we've been very accommodating to them. And they are slowly starting to pick things up and move forward. And so we've seen some plan check activity, some stormwater work. So hopefully that gets going full construction in the spring. And then the last project that we're working on is kind of a big economic development push. We're going to reach out to all of our businesses, and we're starting to focus on our industrial area. And so we're going to look to the industrial part of town, just engage with the businesses. We've partnered with some of the county level partners, and we're going to show up with the full team and see what people need. The Chamber of Commerce, SBDC is helping. It's been really good. And so we'll see how it goes with the rollout. And I'll turn it over to Santa Rosa.
Thank you. Kind of like Dan, I'm not really sure exactly what level of detail we usually go into these, but so since December, I guess the last meeting, we took a study session about our gas station ban ordinance to the city council to consider any changes in light of a request from Costco to relocate their gas station across Santa Rosa Avenue where the Work World site is. So we received a broad range of feedback, and we're still kind of chewing on that. I encourage you all to watch the deliberation of the meeting. It was quite exciting. And then also we are engaging in a conditional use permit streamlining effort to cut the red tape for new businesses of all types, looking just at broader economic development strategies in light of trying budgetary times. It looks like we'll be kicking off our pro-housing designation work in the next several months or so. We've released the land use and circulation alternatives report for the South Santa Rosa specific plan. We have that posted to our specific plan webpage, in addition to a survey. So if y'all are looking to provide your urban planning background and expertise, we would greatly appreciate that. Or if you have community-based organizations that you think might be interested in South Santa Rosa Avenue corridor, in addition to Moreland, looking at different kind of approaches to land use and circulation changes in that area. We've also released and semi-officially closed the public review of a beekeeping ordinance. I'm sure all of you saw I'm sure many of you saw the media activity about a bee. So yeah, we've drafted an ordinance in collaboration with the Sonoma County Beekeepers Association, and we've received a broad range of feedback, to say the least. So we'll be again chewing on that and seeing what we come up with and what Planning Commission and City Council come up with as well. We are kicking off our evacuation analysis effort that will take place over the next year or so. It looks like we are under contract and having a kickoff meeting today. TOC policy, as everyone is working on, seems like we've awarded a contract to someone. Yeah, so I think there's been some site visits and coordination with large stakeholders around our North Station areas, North Smart Station. So business owners and HOAs and things of that nature, seeing how we can somehow comply with TOC policy up there. And then mobile street vending, we are collaborating with the Sonoma County Department of Environmental Health. We've created a website with resources and trying to be consistent with county-wide MECO and street vending types of regulations that have come out in the past 6 months or so. The city also recently launched a historic walking tour program in partnership with the Historical Society of Santa Rosa. If you're interested in that, you can Google it, I suppose. And then finally, I'll just wrap it up. I could go on and on. We're introducing a tiny homes on wheels ordinance, which is going to council on March 10th, which is part of our housing element implementation. So if anybody is interested in that, we have a full ordinance drafted, and I would welcome just copying and pasting in there. Pretty good. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks, y'all.
Great, thank you.
For the county, it's kind of the calm before the storm, before all of our general plan efforts are kicking off in March. It's the exciting actual policy drafting phase for the next couple of years. We'll be doing targeted outreach as opposed to the broad strokes outreach that we did before. So that's exciting. The airport specific plan is still underway. So stay tuned on that. Our larger housing developments are still in CEQA land and probably will be for the foreseeable future. But stay tuned to our website. We update those pretty frequently. Also, we had a good December. We had a few housing elements implementation policies adopted, as well as we updated our ADU ordinance to bring it into full compliance with state law. So now everybody gets 2 ADUs. There's no strings attached, which is nice, except for the few zones that are still out there where there's no water or fire, etc. So those are our big updates.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom who wants to provide any input? If so, raise your hand.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, Zoe, thank you.
Hi, this is Zoe from Smart. The only update I want to provide, well, I guess there are a couple updates, I should say. Take that back. We are planning a community meeting related to our Healdsburg project that will be held in the city of Healdsburg in March. So please stay tuned for the specifics on that. And then as part of the Marin Sonoma coordinated transit service plan, as part of mascots, there are going to be significant changes in terms of service in Sonoma and Marin, specifically as it relates to Smart. We're increasing our service by 19% in April. With some of that being on the weekday, we'll be going from 42 trips to 48 trips. And then on the weekend, we are shifting from 16 trips to 24 trips. So those are some big changes. Other transit providers in the area, specifically Golden Gate, will be cutting back its service on the 101, Route 101. And so there will be a shift in travel, moving those passengers on to Smart to get through the 101 corridor. And Route 101 will be running from Novato south into the city as part of the mascots effort. And there's more information about mascots online on a dedicated webpage related to the mascots effort, but that is coming very soon. And that's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Zoe. Exciting news from Smart. And Ada, do you want to jump in and just keep going with ABAG MTC?
Yeah, I have a few things kind of related to the funding discussion. For those of you who have received PDA grants, as we're looking into the next funding cycle, I think we're trying to make a case for the planning grants. So, and we know there will be a reduction overall, but we want to show the impact of the grants. So you'll be getting a survey. We're looking at, I think I sent them to some of you earlier, but we formalized a kind of a closeout survey for our PDA grants and asked some questions just about impact. And there's room to, fill what you can out. I know it's a little late in the game, but we are looking at formalizing that on an ongoing basis. So I'd appreciate it as the most recent grantee. But the other future grants, as they close out, will also be getting some of those. If downtown Santa Rosa happens to have the information still, would love to include that. Also, I think we've been referencing as well as the grant you're currently managing. And we often reference downtown Santa Rosa's parking plan as like a success also. So there's lots of aspects to the grants that we send other grantees to, and we like to share. And also we've started to present a little bit more to executives about the impact of the program. So thank you very much. I think that's the big one. But OBAG is being discussed in the upcoming year, and I think it's important for us to kind of show what it means to you guys. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And there's a discussion next week, correct?
There's this discussion on February 25th. And that's more specific to the TOC and its relationship to the funding. And then there's this other kind of ongoing conversation that's going to be happening through the year.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So I kind of switched up the regional and standing updates. Sorry about that, but I think it worked out. And with that, we are adjourned at 10:33.
Other meetings too. I'll do it.
Today was just like, got all.
I was like, I don't know if I'm ready.
Just 2 minutes.